Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Suter. I'm the founder of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and we're really excited to present the future of DevSecOps in the Department of Defense. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. We're a nonprofit that brings government, industry, and academia together to kind of work on these hard problems that we have, such as DevSecOps. You should have a great morning. We'll have Q&A after each of the panels, starting off with our keynote here, Nick Shalon, and we'll follow that up with a panel. And we'll have some poll questions mixed in, and we're doing something a little different. For those of you who want your CP credits, we're actually making a poll where you can kind of like hit yes or no, and we'll automatically send you your thing. So anyway, we've got Nick on here. Just a couple of things about Nick. He is the first Chief Software Officer for the U.S. Air Force and Space Force, and the first entirely in the U.S. government. He's a former special advisor for cloud security and DevOps as well. And I've known Nick for a little bit here. I remember when Nick was at DHS Science and Technology. I believe, Nick, you were working a lot in Zero Trust. You went to the Air Force and eventually became the Chief Software Officer. And I remember talking to you, I don't even know if you remember, on all these plans that you had. And I was like, wow, that is really ambitious. I'm like thinking to myself, boy, that's gonna be really tough to do over there. And I thought you were a little bit out there, but I admired you for your ambition. And then you ended up doing it. And I think one of the things that I saw, I wasn't in the Pentagon very much, but every time I was in the Pentagon, either you were at the meeting, you were at the meeting before, or you might have been at the meeting afterwards. So you were really working those halls and talking to everybody that had anything to do with DevOps or security or cloud. And I don't know if you ever knew this, but one of the vendors actually had made a bot unofficially. Is the Where is Nick bot. So they were trying to track you, kind of like Santa at Christmas, because you were like everywhere. You're at the airport show, you're there, you have multiple meetings. And so that was kind of humorous. I won't give away the name of the vendor, but you were actually also a big supporter of ATARC as always. But I don't know if you remember, but the last public event that anybody had in person was at our ATARC DevOps Summit, and you were the keynote to that. And if everybody can recall, that week before pandemic, we had the event on a Tuesday. We were kind of like bumping elbows. Nobody really had a mask. We had 300 people there. The president gave a keynote on Wednesday night, and then the next morning, half my staff was at Wegmans at 6 o'clock in the morning buying toilet paper. So things went pretty quick from there. And, I think the last time I saw you in person was actually fairly recently. I ran into Nick at the end of August at the Fed 100, where he won another award, added to the list. And then I was shortly before your, shall we say, provocative LinkedIn post that came out on September 2nd. So I think what we want to do with this interview, Nick, is kind of look at some of the successes that you had with your team, maybe kind of look at some of the reasons why you left, and then I think we should look to the future a little bit about how we can improve things. I know we've had a lot of discussions about that. It's really about how do we improve things. So, maybe we can talk about, introduce yourself a little bit, but talk about some of the successes that you realized in the last couple of years as Chief Software Officer.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for having me. And you've been a great partner over the last, five years now that I joined the government. Wanted to thank you and ATARC again. When I look back at some of the achievements we made, I would say in the last 3 years, first we created the largest community of practice around DevSecOps. We have about 4,000 people that joined the DoD DevSecOps community of practice. We managed to partner across the department to create, this DoD Enterprise DevSecOps initiative with tangible outcomes. We created, of course, Cloud One and Platform One. Cloud One being the hybrid cloud office, and Platform One being the first ever, approved by DoD CIO and ANS DevSecOps managed service as an enterprise service at scale. And not, snowflakes. And I think that's a massive enabler now to the department very much used by some of the largest weapon systems, AI, ML capabilities, and all the way to space, and edge. That's exciting to see. We created the concept of a really well documented now continuous authority to operate, so we can release multiple times a day and move at the pace of relevance. We also brought the largest implementation of zero trust in a federal agency with Platform One Cloud Native Access Point, the CNAP, which replaced the TIC and the CAP Cloud Access Point, and really brings an end-to-end zero trust implementation inside of the department, which extended not only to classified gapped networks, but also to the on-premise capabilities as well, not just clouds. But we also have it running on both Amazon and Azure as well. And so we demonstrated that we can, implement zero trust. And I did that back in March 2020, way before, the mandate to do so by the president, the recent cyber executive order, which by the way, we're fully compliant with. I helped kind of push that. The software bit of material is also part of Platform One work, and we have that fully baked into Platform One. We brought, these end-to-end DevSecOps capability using AI and machine learning, deployed, Platform One all the way to space and to jets and bombers in production. We took a U2 jet that's 60 years old, and in 12 days we put the DevSecOps platform on the jet, brought AI ML containers on top, and we're able to fly the jet and do over-the-air update like a Tesla does without impacting the airworthiness of the aircraft. So, effectively, we kind of demonstrate that all of this stuff is possible, and despite, what many were telling me, it was not impossible. It was something we could actually do. But my frustration was more on the lack of scale and mandate. To this day, there's no mandate for new programs, not even legacy ones, but not even new programs to use DevSecOps and Agile as the only way to do business. So it's been a big frustration. But as you've seen, we have massive success stories here, and honestly, that's why it's even more frustrating. We have all the answers. They're all right there, and it's tough to be always talking about the same problems.
Yeah. Well, how about one other thing on one of the things I thought you were an innovator on, kind of an underrated thing. It took me a little while to understand it, but your use of Boas to help the procurement and pre-clear. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what you learned through that process.
Yeah, these are actually, one of the massive gap we see in the government is the lack of understanding of Agile, despite that it's 22 years old, right? And people think they're Agile when they can just place an order on an IDIQ and write requirements and end up, buying and being stuck in time with that order. Even if it's a short-lived order, it's not really end-to-end Agile. So we created the basic ordering agreements in DevSecOps, and we have 3 vehicles with cloud, with licenses and talent. And the most interesting one, of course, the license is great. You can buy in bulk and get discounts in volumes and all that good stuff. But I think the most interesting one that people really will massively benefit at scale is the talent BOA, where we buy capacity of work. So if you look at Platform One, we have 275 people, multiple value streams, always ran and integrated by the US government talent, both civilian and military people. And then the key piece is that we don't have a single prime running any of the value streams. It's always a mixed teams of multiple contractors. We have 35 contractors on contract at P1 to bring these 275 people. So effectively, we're never locked into a single company. It's always a diverse team. So we have multiple ideas and options, and no one is not sharing their thoughts. So it opens up, great discussions and opportunities there. And then, with the BOA, you can get access to that capacity of work. So you can say, hey, I need, X number of people with those skills. And then, there's a definition of done baked in where we have to deliver, the code into a government furnished DevSecOps pipeline. It has to pass the test and the scans and the user story definition. So we're not buying wasted time, because a lot of people, when they look at time and material, they're afraid we're just going to buy wasted time. People are just going to build crappy work or not quality work. And it's going to end up, being paid and yet not delivering value. If you have that time and material, but you also have a clause about that quality of work, that passing the scan, the DevSecOps mindset, and effectively the government grooming the backlog and being able to bring that end-to-end agile grooming of that backlog, where we can prioritize work, and effectively you end up with a team, right? Just like you would in a company where you staff it with the right skills, and now you have a capacity of work where you can deliver value and do that continuously every 2 weeks with a 2-week sprints, and be able to groom that backlog.
That was fantastic. I know one of the things that you did, it seemed like there was different units in the Air Force doing DevOps. It seemed like you kind of pulled everybody together. I know that was a lot of negotiation there. Talk about how you kind of like open up channels for collaboration.
Yeah, it's we obviously have a lack of talent and funding too, right? And so when I saw kind of every team building their kind of capability in a vacuum, it was always very concerning. We have to try to be able to be flexible and modular, and maybe not one size fits all, but at the same time, you don't want to have 50 teams building a cloud layer, a zero trust layer, and then, oh, by the way, you're gonna have to figure out a way to integrate it and interconnect all that stuff, and talk about interoperability and all that nonsense. We should have better enterprise services. We see it also across the department, where the Army, Navy, and Air Force are building things in vacuums, even for the basic layer of life in IT, like connectivity, edge, cloud, and zero trust and data fabric, and the services are very good at pretending they have different mission needs, but IT is IT, and it's kind of a joke. At the end of the day, we all need disconnected air gaps, intermittent DDoS. we need all that, and just like being able to connect to a mesh where we have the commercial internet backbone, and 5G and satellite, and the Amazon and Azure of the world connected to that backbone. So we have this flow of data, just transport layer, and then add crypto on top. So you don't do it for classification level, right? So we push that. We decoupled the transport, so we have a real modern mesh, and then add crypto on top to get all the way to special access programs, and TS programs and SCI. And you can now use the data fabric to do access control using ABAC and RBAC and more advanced zero trust microsegmentation. That's where we want to be. And I think the issue, of course, is we're used to the old way of doing business with perimeter defense. 5 years ago, I pushed zero trust at DHS, all to hear that the NPPD leadership at the time said that they didn't believe in it, and that they didn't want to adopt zero trust. And then 5 years later, you see now the new leaders saying we're behind and we need to do this. Well, that's what happens, right? When you're short-sighted and you waste 5 years.
Right. Yeah, I bet they're a little late to the party, but at least they have some draft guidance coming out, and they're partnered with us. And I think you were a little ahead of your time once again on the zero.
Well, that's what we have to do, right? We have to be ahead, not behind. But
Yep. So also, maybe the last thing, kind of in reverse. I know you partner with organizations like the JAIC and really got you involved with AI. Maybe you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
same concept, right? When we look at JAIC and the platform they're trying to build with JCF, which is kind of this multi-tenant data scientist environment where you bring all the tools and all the capabilities to produce AI models, ideally as containers, so they can be reused across the department, and train the models and make them better continuously with that continuous ATO. You don't want to reinvent the entire wheel. And just like the cloud, and so unfortunately for the first year and a half, JAIC kind of tried to do that, and we're building their own cloud and their own platform and their own everything, all to the point where a lot of taxpayer money was wasted down the drain, until they came back and said, hey, we want to use Cloud One and Platform One. And within 4 weeks, we had the JCF up and running, and what was the MVP at the time, and now it's kind of the foundation of what they build. And that's again back to the importance of the layers and decoupling the cloud from the platform, from the zero trust, from the identity management stack. We shouldn't have to reinvent all these wheels every time we're trying to build mission software. So making this widely accessible and widely consumed is the answer to success.
Great. Now we're going to go into a little bit. I want to get inside your head around in August. I just keep thinking, I saw you won another award, that you were unhappy with some things. And it would have been very easy to just keep going the way you're going. Nobody would have known, and you would have been continued to win awards. What prompted you to make that decision to resign?
Yeah, so I think, while we demonstrate all this great success, and I think we clearly had a big impact, and I think it's interesting to see a small group of people can actually move the behemoth that is the DoD, right? So that's cool. At the same time, it's also, I had no kids when I started. Now I have 3 kids under 3, all girls, and it really became more tangible in terms of, hey, we're getting behind China, and China is really not waiting for us to figure this out. And if we don't take action, and particularly in AI, because AI, people fail to realize that we don't have the luxury of time. You see all these reports coming out and saying, we have 7 years, 10 years, whatever. Someone somewhere picked a year. I don't know how, but it's very short-sighted, because what they fail to realize is that AI builds upon itself, and it's a compounding capability where the more data you get, and the faster you can implement it, and the faster you learn, and the faster that cycle can be implemented continuously and rapidly, the more the AI gets better to the point where you can catch up. And so we'll really compete against a nation that's 1.5 billion people, smart people, hard worker too. They of course have their companies mandated to work with the government so they can use all the IP, and of course they steal a ton of IP in the US, so they're not waiting for us to figure this out. And I felt like, look, I'm talking about the same problems. I shown you for 3 years that, hey, we can do this, and it's actually doable, and it's not creating massive churns and complexities as some of people were pretending. Even basic things like the agile training that we created back in 2019 was not even mandated. It was nice to have training, so people would still have to learn Waterfall and earned value management, which is completely outdated. And I would have top program managers and leaders reach out to me and say, I went to the training again, and I'm learning all this stuff that's literally the opposite of what you're telling us to do, and we're confused, and it's frustrating. And I've been trying to push the mandate to move to DevSecOps and really make that the only way to do business, which honestly is borderline criminal not to use DevSecOps in 2020, 2021 for new programs. There's just no valid excuse. Meanwhile, you see companies like SpaceX, right, innovate like no one else business. And thanks to SpaceX, now we don't have to use Russian rockets to send American astronauts to the International Space Station, right, which was disgraceful, and no one even cared. No one is held accountable. People get away with everything. Of course, there was the Afghanistan debacle, which added to my frustration, like everybody else. So you start adding it up, right? And then the final straw was when the Joint Staff asked me to be the CSO for JADC2, to join all domain command and control program, which is supposed to be kind of this Internet of Things of connecting all the weapons into a single capability, which obviously has a tremendous cyber risk. So I was, of course, bringing zero trust and all that. But really what I was saying is the Army, Navy, Air Force do what they usually do with it, which is, building capabilities in vacuums and redundant capabilities. And then, the Joint Staff coming and asked me, hey, you have 4 months to build a minimum viable product for JADC2. We're going to get you some additional money to the work you're doing already in the Air Force. So we started, 2 months in, we managed to get a lot of people excited, NATO, Five Eyes, tons of partner, in the government, ready partner and get this started all, in 2 months to hear, hey, we can find 20 million to do the rest of the MVP, which is obviously a rounding error for the department. So that was kind of the straw. And I wanted to really raise awareness to how bad it is, because we keep saying we're spending more money than China, but I can tell you we're getting 10 cents on the dollar in terms of return on investment. The waste, both in acquisition, failed processes, and buying stuck in time requirements 5 years ahead, and really the the lack of understanding of what the modern next worlds are going to be about in terms of cyber offense and defense and AI ML capabilities and more modern software related capabilities. That was frustrating enough for me to say, hey, I want to get out and be able to continue the fight from the outside, and honestly be shackled to do that, right?
Well, I think the JADC2 is like a pivotal thing for the DoD. Do you think that a lot of it was just, I want to do my own thing, I don't want to work, I'm the Navy, I don't want to work with the Army, or what do you think is inhibiting that? Because it's a great idea. It's like the Lord of the Rings. Everybody has their own systems, but then they connect to this to provide us better intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. You just think that there's resistance institutional on that, or you think you could find $1 million?
I know it's honestly, I think it was a good excuse. I think people say the right things, and like I said in my note, I said, I don't see us walk the talk, and people always come with excuses not to do something. Unfortunately, I'm afraid a lot of it is due to incompetence, not malicious people, just the simple fact, like I said, they don't have an hour of agile training. I remember to this day, my first week in the department, where there was this SWAP study, great study we ended up doing with the Defense Innovation Board on software recommendations, which took way too long. I could have written it in a week, but we had this meeting in the Pentagon where, I don't know, there was probably 50, 60 people, probably my first meeting. First, I've never seen, that many people in a room. On the commercial side, we don't do that. And then, they were supposed to be focusing on how do we bring agile to the department. And, all they were talking about is basic agile principles. And I had to ask, I said, how many people here even implemented agile in a single project in real life? And I raised my hand, right? And out of 50 or 60, I think two people raised their hands. And those were the people handpicked to bring agile, right, to the department. That's, again, back to my point on, we can't blame them, right? But we deserve better as taxpayers, for the warfighters. This is putting lives at risk, I would argue. Situations like the bombing of the 7 kids in the car in Afghanistan could have been prevented with better AI capability that would continuously monitor the satellite imagery we got to get better understanding of what's going on the ground. And it's not rocket science. It's not as advanced as what people think. It's actually a pretty basic use of AI. I would argue probably the easiest use of AI. And yet you see us putting people in jobs. You talk about Jake, you talk about all these programs, no offense to 2- and 3-star generals, but they have no background in the space. It's almost like you would never see Google say, hey, I'm going to hire someone to build the largest cloud on the planet. Let's just take someone that's never done this before, right? Even for like 10 people in their basements, right? That's just common sense. And we keep failing at this, saying, well, IT is simple and it's just management. It's not just management though, right? There's visionary aspect. And what I brought to the department, I was doing like 7 or 8 jobs effectively, right? Because I had to fix everything from endpoints to transport to cloud, right? I was supposedly going to be focusing on the more advanced AI, DevSecOps, and zero trust capabilities, but I couldn't even do that because I had to first fix the basic layer of life. And that's where, having the right people empowered at the lowest level, even if you end up being appointed as a 2- or 3-star general, that doesn't stop you from getting out of the way if you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and one of my missions here at ATARC is really to bring commercial technology and get it integrated with the federal government as fast as possible. What you did is, you brought the latest technology into DevSecOps, including folks like GitLab, but everybody, and it was a continuous process. It was never over. It seems like in AI, are we really behind, or are we just not bringing everything to bear, the technology we've already been developing? It seems like we're not, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, what the challenges are.
Well, I think the mistake people make, the main mistake people make is that they compare the US companies with China, right? And that's completely foolish, right? I'm talking about the US military here. And let's face it, there's a massive wall that doesn't exist in China between their companies and the government. We don't have access to most advanced AI capabilities of the commercial companies. Google dropped Maven, right? The minute a couple of employees complain about their technology being used on drones, which again, potentially what people forget to realize, this could have saved lives. Again, in the example of Afghanistan, it's not just going to help us do better targeting. It's saving lives. It's also improving our capabilities so we don't potentially kill innocent people. And look, the strikes are not going to stop because you refuse to partner with the government, right? So companies need to wake up and start leaving the Silicon Valley bubble, because we have a DoD bubble, no doubt. But I can tell you they have a tremendous Silicon Valley bubble where they don't realize what's going on around them. And the fact that we overclassify everything that's going on in China and all these cyber offense and all these AI capabilities being built, and you've seen again recently with the hypersonic missile launched by China, they're not waiting for us to figure this out. And so my point is, the US government does not have access to most of this technology. We're not completely 100% useless. I'm not saying that, but we don't have the basics of life. We can't even figure out cloud at scale and data fabric. How do you do AI if you don't have a data lake and warehouse to put your data in? I mean, people just, I heard, people that are widely incompetent dare to reply, that allegedly army systems have AI baked in from the get-go. We all know this is a joke. This is disgraceful to even make that statement. And better leaders are saying, look, we're not perfect and we can drastically improve. It's not to the point where it's a terrible state. But when I compare our velocity to a Tesla, where they can update their fleet every 2 weeks, have access to this tremendous amount of data, and brought a self-learning capabilities in 5 years, that's better than anyone has ever dreamed about. It's not perfect, but it's way better than what most people were saying, and now almost touched $1 trillion valuation this month, just for a few minutes. That shows you that that's the answer, right? But people keep dismissing all this as if it's nice to have. It's not nice to have. It's foundational to our next fights. And honestly, people don't realize what you can do with AI. It's much smarter than all of us combined. And when you have that volume of data, that tremendous insight that AI could bring in terms of compounded analysis of what's going on, it's scary, because of course we need to talk about ethics and we need to talk about privacy. But all I've seen in the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, coming from Jake, is this ethics discussion. And I get it, we need some ethics, but that can't be the only focus of a warfighting organization. They pick the wrong job. If that's what you want, go work for the White House or whatever and talk about ethics all day you want. But you're in a military organization here to bring warfighter capabilities.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Michael Pillsbury 100-year war. China has been working against us. They're trying to be dominant power, right? So it's like until recently we didn't even acknowledge that. So let's focus now on what if you were SecDef for the day. I don't know,
DevSecDef, just maybe DevSecDef. That's good enough.
Yeah, right. What do you think fundamentally, culture, personnel, procurement? What do you let's go down the list of some things you think we can fix, because we want things can be fixed.
Of course. No, there's a lot of great things that are already happening, right? But first, I would start with empowering and investing in our people through training. First, continuous learning is going to be key. First, I will mandate agile training to everybody, including at the highest rank. And then that will be the step one, really getting to that agile end-to-end training. Then also, particularly for the acquisition teams and contracting, really that end-to-end understanding of that the government should not, be seen as someone getting in the way, but really having the proper oversight and implementation of integration, where the government should be the integrator. We shouldn't rely on the single primes. We should have a diversity of talent baked into these teams, cut work into smaller bites, so you don't end up in a situation like GBSD, which is, you know, our global strategic based deterrence for the nuclear capability on the ground, to effectively not be in a situation where there is only one bidder in the largest contract, one of the largest contracts on the planet, only because there's only one company that could enter the bid. If we had cut the work, I would argue we could have gotten lots more options when it comes to different things like software and AI and ML capabilities and other stuff. So again, you know, real end-to-end implementation of agile, capacity of work, and that training that goes with it, and then empowering the lowest rank to get this done, because they know how to do it, and they want to do it. That's step one. The step two is creating a few joint office. We have kind of tried to do some of this with Jake, but it wasn't done right. You know, it shouldn't be DoD CIO. They're moving into DevSecDef. We should have a joint team for cloud, for DevSecOps, for AI ML, for data fabric, all for. And when I say joint team, it means staff with leaders from all three services and fourth estate, and really building again on that foundation of agile, where there's not a single prime showing up allegedly bringing this zero trust end-to-end capability, which is a pipe dream. You know, if you look at the cloud native access point, we built a platform when we had 8 companies to help us, you know, build the zero trust stack, and a very diverse team of DevSecOps engineers and full stack engineers to continuously improve the capability over time. So again, having the capacity of work, we should have a capacity of work for cloud, for data, for zero trust, and for DevSecOps, and enterprise capabilities. I don't want to hear this anymore. Say that the DoD is too big to build enterprise services. No, you just don't know how to be relevant. That's different, right? You don't know how to build a company, right? There are companies out there that are massive scale. It's completely disgraceful to start saying from the get-go, we have no chance of building enterprise services because we're too big. One, it's not true. Google has billions of hundreds of millions of customers, and they are used just fine. The key is to have diversity of options, not getting locked into a single company, have you know, different models in terms of SaaS versus on-premise versus edge implementations, moving at a pace of relevance, using agile and DevSecOps, so you don't talk about doing a zero trust stack only impact level 2 to impact level 4 in class, when you could do it across all fabric, like Platform One did within a year, with a very small team. So again, it's not about the size of the department, it's about how to build these joint teams as if they were companies, and that we don't forget the DoD programs and teams and warfighters are the freaking customers, not the other way around, right? And break the silos, stop with the egos of complacency and worse, lack of urgency and understanding of what the future looks like. You know, a lot of people have been stuck so long in the DoD bubble. If they go spend, you know, 2 weeks at SpaceX, their head is going to explode. I had people tell me, oh, I spent, you know, 30 years to this large prime, and my software never even made it to space. And within 6 weeks at SpaceX, my software was in space. You know, if that's not like an awakening moment, I don't know what it takes for people to wake up. And people keep saying, you know, in cyber, we're waiting for this Pearl Harbor event. There were multiple mini Pearl Harbor events, you know, old pipeline breach, you know, water facility breach where malicious actor were tampering with the quality of water, potentially could have killed people. And yet, you know, we keep dismissing it because it feels like it's not tangible enough for people. They don't end up feeling the pain on a day-to-day basis, even when their information has been leaked and their social security numbers are all over the place already. That's not something you feel on a day-to-day basis enough. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to take something big for most people to realize how bad things are.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You know, one of the things that I've always seen in training is that's the first thing that gets cut. To me, that should be the last thing that gets cut. And I've talked to, very frustrating, some folks aren't even allowed to come to my events, but even like a commercial event like Amazon, you know, you need to go to these, you know, you need to go.
I wasn't aware some folks were not allowed to go to your events. That's scary.
Well, you know, back to OPM, I was looking through when the OPM scandal happened. there was nobody from OPM that ever went to one of my cyber conferences. So that tells you a little bit about the culture they had at that time, where they just were in their little, in their little cap. How do we get so training, invest in training? I think that's you just have to
continuous learning, right? It has to be self-learning at scale, unbiased content. I spent a lot of time with the Linux Foundation, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Look, there are a lot of great companies out there, like the Red Hat of the world and VMware and whatever, right? Building their training, but the fact is, it's mostly biased content. It's pushing their products. And it makes sense. I would do the same if I were in the companies, right? But there are contents out there that are unbiased, and I really partner with the Linux Foundation and CNCF and O'Reilly the books to bring some of that and curate the content, so the training we push to our warfighters are not biased from the get-go. And having that continuous learning hub online, because the fact is the pace of IT is so crazy. You can't just do this, once a week or once a year or whatever, right? I was giving an hour a day to our people to first catch up and then learn. But again, also making sure that the training that's mandated for them to receive, like again, for a product manager having to learn all the waterfall nonsense in 2021 is a disgrace. And the fact that DAU and OSD, ANS are still not taking any action to fix that is despicable.
Yeah. I look at the culture. We built the Pentagon in World War II. We didn't have computers. We built the whole Pentagon in 18 months. And then the same project manager, his side project was the Manhattan Project, and he built that. We built the atomic bomb in like 23 months, right? How do we move it? So at least one thing with COVID that happened is we got some memos out of DoD in less than 18 months. Some things moved. It almost takes a crisis, right? How do we get this culture where we don't have to be in an emergency situation all the time, but how do we get things? How can we change that? It's a monster.
No, it's a complacency, right? I think we're so used to leading, and we've been leading for so many years after World War II that people became complacent. What's scary is that we see clearly, right? The government keep calling China as a near peer adversary, which is completely false. It's a peer adversary, period. And in some use cases, they're leading. And we're okay even with them catching up. Why are we okay with them catching up? Even if you don't agree they're leading or equal, why are you okay with them catching up? How is that a thing? Look at Tesla, right? Tesla was okay open sourcing and giving away their patents because they know they continuously innovate so fast that by the time these companies even start using those things, they're going to be miles ahead. We should be in the same mindset. We shouldn't even have to worry about China. We should be so far ahead, thinking of Mars and other things, that we shouldn't even have to think about it. But the fact is, the bureaucracy is ingrained, and the model, right, of even, Congress is responsible too, right, with the funding model, where you're allegedly supposed to know, 3, 5, 7 years ahead what you're going to be building, where really we should have a capacity of work and have year-to-year understanding of backlog and big epics and big rocks. But we don't do that, right? We have to estimate. I remember when we made Platform One a program of record, and people say asking me, what am I going to need, in 2027? I'm like, we're not even in 21. I don't even know what I need in 22. It just makes no sense, And honestly, it's all guesswork, so people feel better about themselves, but it brings no value whatsoever. I mean, the IT pace is so insane that anyone pretending that know what's going to happen in 2025 is already wrong, and probably needs a hard awakening to realize that. And maybe we should hold people accountable. The other issue is, no one even knows how many times did we make bets and did we say this was going to happen and it didn't happen, and then everybody gets away with it. Look at Jedi. What I heard former defense digital service leaders now, getting a unicorn valuation based on nothing but wind, get to brag about Jedi as a success story. I mean, you have to have the insanity to dare to even mention Jedi as anything but a total debacle. We did with Cloud One more in a year than they did in ever, right? And it was so common sense. And I was pushing this multi-hybrid cloud from the get-go, and all hearing the wrong answers. And now, of course, the new, JC, whatever the acronym, JWCC, new cloud thing is just Jedi now multi-cloud. That's all they changed, right? They couldn't do that in 3 years. How long does it take for someone to get common sense? Like, what's wrong with people? Why did we have to wait 3 years for them to say, well, maybe we should do multiple worlds, right? I mean, this is just not rocket science.
It happens in every domain ever. You got to have multiple awards, and then it's not protested, and you get things out the door. Boy, this is going by quick. What's next for you? Where's your head at now? And besides, I know you've been on a run of all this different man of all media, but where are you with your family, and what do you think is next for Nick Shalon?
Well, I really want to make sure we keep raising awareness, and as long as I have a platform, I'm going to make sure that we hold people accountable. We create that sense of urgency. There's nothing more important for me. I was lucky to sell 12 companies before this job, so I don't really have to work. That's good. I don't have, any plan on slowing down that awareness discussion, because I hear some good reaction, and I hear some rambling of goodness. I want to make sure we go testify in front of Congress to really also make sure they wake up, because again, you look at the NDA and all the push we see, it's always reports after reports, and instead of asking about outcomes. And quite honestly, Pentagon leaders should be ashamed that they have to wait for Congress to tell them what to do, and maybe they should learn to be proactive at their jobs, so they don't have to wait for Congress to tell them what to do next. Congress is always at least 2-3 years behind. So there's plenty of time for the Pentagon leaders to do things proactively, so they never have to hear about the NDA again, in terms of all these reports and sections that we see every freaking year, mostly bringing very anecdotal value, right? And more reports to say that, we need to take action, or not to take action. So what's the point? I stopped even focusing on these reports after 3 years, because I was like, we have a great report, but then nothing is done to implement the proposed answers in the report. So what's the point? Or if we do try to implement some of it, it's anecdotal and pilots in tiny, 0.001% of the department, effectively, a whole pile of nothing. So I think for me, it's going to be time, to keep raising awareness. And more importantly, since we think that by December 2022, we will be out of time to even wake up, we're going to have these monthly events to ask the government to come back to us and tell us, hey, what have you improved this month? What are you doing? What is being done to not wait for that December 2022 deadline to wake up?
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for Nick. Thank you so much for doing this, and good luck. We'll be keeping up with you. I follow you on LinkedIn and Twitter, and believe me, I've always done that. That's where all the action is. And every time you do a quote unquote cocktail party, everybody's talking. So keep up the good work, and we'll see you soon.
And I see you have great people coming next. So have fun, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So that's Nick Shalon, former Chief Software Officer. I think he set the stage for some interesting conversation with our next panel. If everybody can come on, we will do some quick introductions, and then each of the panelists we'll give them about 5 minutes, kind of talk about their mission. So I'll just go round robin super quick. We have with us, and everybody's squares are different, so I know it's to my right or left. I don't even know what it is. But Ian Anderson, lead DevSecOps engineer, secure cloud architecture and automation at the U.S. Navy, and an ATARC board member. Welcome, Ian. Are you down in where were you? You're down over in Dahlgren, or?
Yeah, so I'm with NSWC Dahlgren, but down at their Dam Neck activity in Virginia Beach.
Great. Well, welcome and thank you. And I look forward to your comments when we get to those. Thank you for coming. And then we have Duong Hang, Deputy Director, DoD Platform 1, United States Air Force. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. I'm following Mr. Nick here, so I don't know. It's a big shoes to fill over.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay. I like your background there. It's like 70s mood. You know, it reminds me of my parents in the 70s. I like it. Cool. Next, we have Don Yeski, Chief Solutions Architect at the Don CIO Division Head, Expeditionary Enterprise Systems and Services, E2S2, Naval Information Warfare Center, NIWIC, Atlantic. Don, welcome.
Thank you.
And Don, where are you working from today? Looks like at home, but where is home?
Yes, it is. It's my home office. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina.
One of my favorite places. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And then we'll have with us Larry Charbonneau, Senior Software Architect and Team Lead, PEO, BES, DevSecOps Service, United States Air Force. Welcome, Larry. It looks like you're working out of your house as well. Where do you hail from?
Working out of home here in Montgomery, Alabama.
All right. Another good place. We also have with us Tracy Bannon, Senior Principal Security Architect and DevOps Strategic Advisor at MITRE. And she works with us on a lot of our committees. We worked with, when we did the MITRE sessions, when we were in person, we worked quite a bit together and we continue to work together. How you doing this morning, Tracy?
I am doing very well. Thanks for the invite.
And are you in a MITRE office? It kind of looks like
I am not. I'm actually at Penn State University today. I'm going to be meeting with some up and coming women engineers a little bit later. So no, I'm in a borrowed office.
Well, just a spoiler alert, don't mention the last game they had against Illinois. I don't think that's going to go over well there.
Hushy, hushy, hushy.
That's a little gouge for you there. And last but not least, probably the person I've known the longest is a good friend, Joe McCairns, who's the federal DoD Senior Solutions Architect Lead at GitLab. And Joe, we go back at the beginnings of ATARC. I think you were probably one of the first vendors at the time that did our stuff. We had many an adventure at an ATARC event. Welcome.
We did, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, we've seen a lot of technology, so pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
And where are you working out of today, Joe?
So I'm based in Philadelphia, but I'm actually down here in Baltimore getting ready for a show down here.
Oh yeah. What is it called again? It's a CyberNet.
It's TechNet
yeah.
Cyber.
Yep. I'm trying to pop in there if I can get some time. I heard it's going to be really good this year, and people are starting to go back to the shows, which is promising. Hopefully, we'll do that with ATARC. So anyway, maybe we'll start off with you, Ian, since you're a board member. Random out of the hat, but tell us a little bit about what you've been working on at DevSecOps lately, and look forward to your comments.
Yes, so I work with, like I said, Naval Surface Warfare Center Dahlgren. I work with their DamNec activity in Virginia Beach. Have been working there doing DevSecOps for one of our groups, as well as helping our department down here kind of move towards the DevSecOps best practices, DevOps best practices. But recently, I am now the acting technical lead for our Warfare Center-wide software factory initiative. Had served on the group which we called the Software Factory Foundations to really understand, what do we have at our Warfare Center, and how can we best support them at the enterprise level. So one of the unique things about Naval Surface Warfare Center Dahlgren and most of the warfare centers is we're a working capital fund. So what that means is, the government sends us money to basically just say we have a building and this is where we sit. And the rest of the funds come from the projects that we bring in from our program offices. And it doesn't have to be just Navy. We can, bring in, projects from the Air Force, Army, whoever sees, that we're best suited to handle that. So, when we first surveyed these, the projects and the teams throughout the Warfare Center, you got to really see the silos. There were some groups, some departments that were really ahead of the times, really putting the emphasis on their teams to do these DevOps, DevSecOps best practices. And then you had other teams that you said, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And they asked you questions like, what is Git? What is an image? What is a container? So you had, everyone on both ends of the spectrum. So, we had to take a step back and say, okay, how can we best serve our customer base, the entire Warfare Center, without, hindering those that are already doing these best practices, but also, putting policies and processes in place to, get these groups and projects up to the level that we want to see. So now we've, come through the Software Factory Foundations, starting up our kind of enterprise service and bringing all these groups together and offering a lot of the, software tools that they need to really get started and, get going. And if they are already going, how can they reduce their cost by that being an enterprise service?
Great, thank you for that. The Software Factory sounds kind of familiar. Wong, I'd love to hear the latest updates on, from your front at the Air Force on Platform One.
Yeah, so Platform One is, it's never a dull moment here. We obviously officially lost a champion inside the government with Nick leaving, but at the same time, we still have a lot of champions within the DoD and the Air Force on Platform One. Some of the biggest things that have happened recently is, one of the challenges we've had in Platform One is, hey, this is something that everyone can use, but it's very difficult to scale the government, especially even if it's Platform One, somewhere as innovative as Platform One. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is we've expanded the number of companies that we call them resellers, that will allow us to resell or commercialize the services of actually deploying a lot of our capabilities out there to the different customer organizations. So we have this thing called purposefulization. We selected 6 vendors that are going to go and basically take our big bang DevSecOps template, infrastructure code, and then they're going to help deploy that to any organizations that need capabilities beyond what we provide at Party Bus today, which is our DevSecOps platform as a service. There's limitations to that service, so if they want something more than that, they can certainly deploy that. The other thing that we're working on in Platform One is lots of we're still working through a lot of our budgetary challenges. So we are still completely fully funded across what we do today. But that is something like, as the warfare centers that Mr. Anderson talked about, that is dependent on our customers coming in and providing funding. And right now we have a lot of customers that are really excited about still coming in and providing that funding, supporting the vision that Mr. Shalon and the rest of the team have had to deploy DevSecOps across the DoD. We recently even talked to the ABMS JADC2 folks about their continued support for Platform One to deploy, to basically build an integrated capability using a common platform for the all DoD. So those are just some of the things that I want to kind of highlight today with you on the things that are happening in Platform One. Or,
yeah, thank you for that. Very interesting challenges, and they're all different. I like the idea of having some vendors to do services for you, to tweak things up that you don't have to do yourself. That's a pretty innovative idea. Great. And how about we go to you next, Don? Go back to the Navy.
Hey, good morning. For those I haven't met, my name is Don Yeske. As I was introduced by Tom, I'm the Don CIO's Chief Solutions Architect. That is what I do as a day job, because I do come from one of those warfare centers that Ian described. And so as a division head inside one of those warfare centers that provides DevSecOps platform services, I also, along with my entire staff, have to eat what I kill. So, I have to go out and earn the paycheck that I earn by doing work for other government agencies and services and headquarters elements. So for the past 2 years, I was embedded inside Deputy Commandant for Information in the Marine Corps. And then more recently went to work for the Don CIO at their request to take over architecture at the Don CIO level. We did just recently complete a survey of all the DevSecOps platform service providers in the Navy and the ones the Navy is using from other joint service providers, including Platform One. The Navy has, in fact, taken advantage of that big bang approach to create something called Black Pearl. which is essentially a copy of Platform One and party bus infrastructure. So thoroughly familiar with that and very appreciative for all of the leadership that has come out of Platform One over the past several years. Certainly learned a lot from that as we built McBoss inside the Marine Corps. And I'm sure that other joint service providers would say the same. My perspective on this, from where I sit, both as a service provider and working inside the Don CIO, is that we kind of need to get away from the idea of, platform wars. We need to get away from the idea that we're competing with one another, because when you talk with the people who are doing this work, which includes me and my team, we're not. We're learning from one another. And what we're actually doing is trying to repackage those services where it makes sense and where they work for other consumers, and really tailor and customize software factories for their consumers, right? For the warfighter and the environment in which that warfighter sits. So I'd like to see us get away from that and focus more on the real issues, which are not technical, as Nick so eloquently stated. They're cultural, right? They are our ability to put things on contract, our ability to put requirements into the programming and planning process, our ability to actually connect the end user with the people providing them their services. Those things are broken inside of DoD, and we have all been in the last several years on the forefront of trying to fix that. So I will continue to do that from where I sit. Over.
Don, I think you're bringing up a great point. I've seen this so many other times on contract vehicles. You're competing against Waterfall. You're competing against these old practices. There's not like, that's a first world problem that you actually are competing against each other. So yeah, that's a good point. And we did have a question that was kind of answered. If I'm in a different agency, how is it? Well, I'll save that one so everybody gets a chance, but that'll be my first question. Okay. Anyway, Larry, we're back to the Air Force again.
Hey, Larry Charbonneau here. So work with BES, Business Enterprise Systems, and the pipeline that we're maintaining and running services all our legacy systems, the brownfield type of applications. And a lot of the challenges that we work with that is working against the old waterfall policies, and how does it fit, especially with the transition into Agile and the DevSecOps. So we always run into, we've done it this way for so long, how does it fit into the pipeline? And a lot of the programs that we support look at what we're trying to provide for them, and they don't know how it fits in. So the transition to the Agile is something that most of the programs are still in the crawl and in their infancy at. And then we come in and we kind of promote the DSO pipeline, and we have 180 legacy systems that are all brownfield. And I mean, some are quite old, and we still have COBOL out there. So a lot of questions arise, and when we go out to support them and move them in, we've moved 150 of those into our pipeline. At some level, they are integrated and discovering what the pipeline brings them, what the DSO can offer them, and lots of people accept it, and we move in and we get them integrated into their kind of in a starting phase where let's get you just automated in some fashion, and then we'll build upon that. So a lot of challenges that we face are the transition from Waterfall, how that fits into what we're offering them. Funding is another challenge that not only that we face, but the programs themselves. They're like, as soon as we bring them in and start talking about it, they're like, we don't have funding for this. But the pipeline that we kind of targeted, we use all open source as much as possible, using Jenkins and so on to offer them a solution that has no or little cost to them. So we bring them on, and as we help them out in that transition into that pipeline, we kind of open their eyes. Like, for us, the pipeline represents no hands-on, right? We want to get everything as automated as possible. And we usually take baby steps with them, the same approach that we take with the Agile aspect of it. There's a walk, a crawl, a walk, run, and so on. So we try to pull them in and give them the ability to see the first step and go, wow, we can actually do this. And it's that challenge of the waterfall, lack of training, and trying to get them into a pipeline and just getting them to see what benefits that they can take from that and put into their process so that they get that automated feel. And as they get more comfortable with it, we are there to support them with building upon that and getting them more and more automated and to fully utilize what the pipeline can offer for them. So there are a few challenges, and we are definitely working on getting that customer in there and the challenges of just maintaining the pipeline. And we have close relationships with some of the greenfield like BestPen and Platform One and Cloud One.
Yeah, you're bringing up a great point. It's like so many of these systems, all their budgets in O&M, and it's so hard to do the innovation. Once you start doing it, you're freeing up a little more money, freeing up a little more money, freeing up a little more money. And then when finally you transition, it's going to be a lot cheaper to operate this on a modern architecture. I don't think there's too many COBOL programmers floating around out there these days. Next, we will go with Tracy. I know, Tracy, you work across the government and you're kind of always looking at the future on the next biggest thing. I'm looking forward to your comments.
Hey, thank you. It's actually humbling to be in the audience, to be part of the panel with the folks that we have here right now. Tom, you brought up, I work with the MITRE Corporation. I'm a senior principal there. I'm a software architect, I'm an engineer, and a lot of times I spend days helping folks understand DevOps and the implication of DevSecOps. I will push on Ian a little bit and say, I don't talk about best practices. I actually talk about leading practices. I'm poking at you, Ian, because it's all around the context of what the different problems are. Larry talked about this, Don talked about this. We really don't have as much of a technology problem as we do a culture challenge. And it's not that we need to change culture. I'm going to say we need to build culture. So with my role as MITRE, MITRE is a not-for-profit. They are federally funded research and development called an FFRDC, chartered by Congress to provide that next level of guidance, to be objective. So I am not competing with industry. I am not selling anything to anybody. I am allocated to the Navy. I'm allocated to the Air Force. I'm allocated to DHS and to some of the civilian agencies to get in the mix of this, to be a part of that, and to help work shoulder to shoulder with Ian, work shoulder to shoulder with Don. And part of the biggest thing, the biggest effort right now is actually straight talk. It is bringing together shared experiences, because we've all been doing a lot of really good things. We're not going to talk about Waterfall versus Agile for a moment. We're just going to talk about the fact that we have amazing capabilities. In DoD, we have goodness. We have smart, intelligent engineers who are competent and capable and need to be empowered and need to be enabled. There are other challenges that folks don't always talk about, and Don brought this up, Larry brought this up. We've got decades of brownfield capabilities, and everything is not greenfield. So we have to make a conscious effort about how we will be merging. I call it olive, right? How we merge the brownfield with the greenfield, how we get those things to work closely together. When is it appropriate for it to be an enterprise capability, an enterprise service? So I actually work with all the folks who are on this panel right now in one way or another to drive that mentality forward, and to also focus on the architecture. DevSecOps is one piece of the pie. I like to say that you can't put a steel girder through a wood chipper and think that that's going to work. There are a lot of architectures that we have right now that aren't immediately able to adopt all of the bells and whistles that people associate with DevSecOps. So taking a risk-based approach, looking specifically at what they need to do, and providing that continuous learning and those opportunities for continuous learning. One of the folks I work with the most closely right now is a woman by the name of Christina Rylander. Now, she actually may have worked with some of you with BestPen. She was part of the organization. She was one of the leaders standing up BestPen. She now works with MITRE. And we've done a lot of work recently, and she's been leading the effort with Tori Koff underneath the Acquisition University. Nick spoke about this earlier. that the acquisition university is more waterfall based. Well, I'm not going to speak about the acquisition university as much as I am about this concept of digital DNA. It's a highly relevant, fast-paced, consumable set of learning to help the acquisition specialists, because as we all know, it's not a tech challenge, it's an acquisition challenge, and it's a culture challenge. So where do I sit in all of this? Well, I sit here trying to be, like you, Tom, a connector of connectors and enabling the government to move forward. Over.
Thank you, Tracy. And last but certainly not least, we'll go ahead with Joe. And as a little background here, this event came together in about 2.5 weeks. I was talking to Bob Stevens, who's the new VP of Federal Public Sector, I guess, and he's like, well, hey, we want to participate in this, and he definitely helped make it possible. But thank you, Joe. I know you see a lot of things across government and across, even from industry. You guys do a lot of work on the commercial side. I'd love to hear your perspectives on what you see on this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. First, again, thanks for being here. Yeah, so in my role at the GitLab, I am a senior solution architect, primarily focused Department of Defense. And for those out there that aren't familiar with GitLab, we are an end-to-end DevSecOps solution. So organically, people have been going out and buying point solutions, trying to build their DevSecOps tool chain. And while they embrace DevSecOps, these disparate tools tend to slow you down and tend to add up to the cost and the maintenance. GitLab's approach was very, very different, very revolutionary in that we provide one product that does end-to-end from requirements all the way through to production deployment. Certainly integrate with other solutions. So, we don't want to do a lift and shift if you've already invested in something, but the true velocity and value comes from using our platform. And that's evident by a lot of the work that I've been doing. I've worked with almost all of the software factories in the Air Force, Platform One, Iron Bank on that end, as well as we're doing an awful lot of work in Army, Navy, Fourth Estate as well. So really bringing that value in. So yeah, I sort of agree. It's not necessarily a product issue, but product can definitely impact positive or negative your success. The other thing we do believe in is, I use the expression, good now is better than perfect later. If we looked at the waterfall approaches, it was spend an exorbitant amount of time getting requirements right before we start developing. Security was almost an afterthought, a last step type of thing. Here at GitLab, we believe in highly iterating over your product. We come out with a new release the 22nd of every month with hundreds of new features because we believe, like I said, get something out there and then just start iterating over it and build it out. And that's what led to the success of all of our customers. And to those struggling out there, I would say, think about that. Just, good now is better than perfect later.
No, I've seen that in my career. It's better to get something out the door. I've actually got a quote here. It's, a good plan today is a better than a perfect plan tomorrow. George Patton. So we didn't compare notes before that, but it's a good point. I don't mind getting in trouble with CIOs and folks like that, but I get nervous when the accreditation people get mad at us. So I don't want that to happen. So we need to get everybody their CPE credits. But we have a series of questions, and maybe that'll set the table for our questions with our polls. Do we want to, Alyssa, you mind sticking up that first poll? All right, this is our audience, and of course, some of the industry folks where you have customers. So I would say where you or your customers, where are you all? Very interesting. We'll give it just a couple of seconds. I assume we have everybody's paying attention. We got some quick triggers here. So let's see what the poll comes back. Can we post that up? Everybody get in.
Okay.
A good mix. Anybody surprised by that?
Not what I would
that's kind of.
It's consistent with what we found surveying the whole of the Navy. I think that's accurate.
Surprised but excited.
If you asked this question a year ago, it would have been very different.
I think so, but I am surprised at the groups that say they're using all features, because I would push back and say, what exactly does that mean? But if folks believe that they are really moving quickly and they're able to deliver value fast to the warfighter, awesome. I mean, that's ultimately what matters, is that we're able to securely provide the features that they need.
Spot on, Tracy.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And remember, the people here are interested in DevOps, so they're you know, but I think that's an interesting poll. Let's see the next one. All right. In your opinion, what is the best DevSecOps practices for security? And this is like one of those multiple choice. Yeah, multiple choice helped me get through college. I don't think there is a wrong answer, but all right, let's see. We still got some results coming in, I'm sure, but when you're ready, Alyssa, if you don't mind putting that guy up. So I'm interested to see. I don't know what's going to happen on this one. All right, what do we have?
So an even split, I kind of would have hoped or expected to see something that says like all of the above. Like, you know, how is it that we're not doing all of these things? I think we are, you know, but yeah, unsurprising that it would be a split vote given the choices.
Well, it looks like security, you know, that we had a holy war a few years ago at our DevOps conference. Should we call it DevSecOps? First year, everybody wasn't really with that, changing it, but I think security is one of the biggest advantages of DevSecOps. You know, when Joe and I were in the mobile side, you know, people would develop all these apps, and then you basically, oh yeah, I'm going to do security. And then you do security, you basically have to rewrite them all over again. You know, learned a lot from those days. Okay, we got one more poll.
Hey, well, Tom, I'm still not sold on saying DevSecOps versus DevOps, because if you're doing DevOps and you're not concerned about security, but I am game to add in that phoneme if it just makes people feel better, because security is part of the mix no matter what. So rant over and we can go on to the next poll.
Yeah, see, it's not over yet. That's okay. In your opinion, how important is emerging technologies in the future of DevSecOps in the DoD? I'm not going to skew anything. I've learned, like, don't say anything. So, all right, let's close that one up and we can move on with the questions. Let's see. I think this goes, of course, that's not surprising. We probably should have written that better. But, you know, I think what in Nick's keynote, the frustrating thing in some cases is getting this latest technology and start using it, right? I think DevSecOps has done pretty well getting the latest technology, but it goes back to what he was talking about with China. You know, we have all this great commercial technology. How do we get it working in the federal government as fast as possible, and particularly the DoD? Great. Okay. Yeah, I have some questions, but maybe we'll go back. We had a question pop up. I thought it was a pretty good one. The gentleman was from a civilian agency, and it's like, hey, we're kind of basically the gist of the question is we're rewriting everything from scratch. How do we work with like a platform one to take some of their best practices and share? And I know, Don, you guys have done that in Navy with the Black Pearl. What are some of the best practices? How do we share better so we don't have to like start from scratch on everything? Maybe starting off with you, Don.
Yeah. So, you know, I think one of the easiest ways to at least start digesting the whole thing about DevSecOps and Agile is, you know, kind of reading about, platform one, we published a survival guide on DevSecOps, at least the way we look at DevSecOps. And I can share a link afterwards, but starting with that is kind of understanding what DevSecOps is, understanding even some of the things that kind of lead up to it, like human-centered design and Agile and Lean. And I think that will start setting you in the right tone in terms of understanding the cultural aspects that allow you to kind of enable DevSecOps, which becomes kind of like the implementation side of those philosophies. And then I know that's kind of like high-minded stuff, but then you can get to some of the practical things. You know, we publish on Iron Bank. We have you can get to Iron Bank. Anyone can register, get a login, and take a look at the containers we have today. Those are things that we provide. We are both providers of containers, hardened containers, as well as consumers. So we take some of those containers and we build out Iron Bank. We also use those containers and we build out Big Bang. And so those are the things that are the tools that we do, and you guys certainly can do that as well. And then Big Bang as well as you can also download and just explore and stand up your own instance even from home. And that's one of the best ways of learning. And of course, for organizations that don't have the capacity or to actually do all that, we can advise, certainly advise. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a commercialization effort where we're starting to kick that off, and we're going to get these organizations to tie you in with your organization to help you on your journey as to where you are and getting to where you need to be, where they will be able to advise up to even deploying your own Big Bang instance, where you get to have your platform in your environment, and you can be off and running as well. So there's a range of options there. Over.
Great. How about you, Don? Since you
So
talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, so I completely concur with Duong's answer. I would tell you that the main problem for us in standing up Black Pearl wasn't really getting the Big Bang to work, right? That's a service that works pretty well. The main issue that we see is really about the teams themselves. It's about the learning, right? So what you have to do is view it as a people problem more than a technology problem. And that is all about how you mentor teams. What we do within McBoss is we have a team called McBoss Apps. That's their entire job. They sit down with the new team coming on board in the platform and actually mentor them from the ground up. And the greatest variability that we see when we measure performance in DevSecOps across DoD and across the Dawn really traces back to the maturity of those teams and the maturity of their practices, which is why what we focus on for accreditation inside the Marine Corps is the playbook, not really the technology. Are you following the playbook? What we're trying to accredit and what we're trying to drive is future behavior of teams. We could take the technology pieces and pull them out and replace them with equivalents fairly easily. No disrespect to GitLab. I love GitLab. We use GitLab, right? But GitLab would tell you, and I'm sure Joe would agree, you can plug and play other pieces where you need to and where it makes sense for your use case.
And Don, you bring
Yeah,
up such a strong point about the technology is a core part of it, but I love what you've said, that you're bringing people together and you're mentoring them on how, not with the tool, not specifically on the tool, but get them to the principles, get them those understandings, and giving them somebody to help shadow and mentor with as the first step in this journey. And you also have multiple different types of technologies, right? Every architecture, every aspect, every application is not going to be exactly the same. Which is something that you are already aware of, but you call that out really promptly.
Well, and I would add that everyone who's doing this is doing that, right? So the Army, stood up a software factory in Texas where basically what they do is bring classes of people through that factory and teach them the way, right? We have McBoss Apps in the Marine Corps. The Air Force obviously has Platform One and offers rotations to all the other branches of service, right? And that is a huge service that we've learned a great deal from in the Marine Corps. So I would tell you that that's all working. And where we need to kind of reinforce efforts is that codifying our practices, getting our playbooks right, and being more consistent about how we do this. Over.
But let me ask you a
Great.
question though, Don. And I know that this is Tom is probably going, Trace, what are you doing?
You're welcome.
The question that I have though is, while we're mentoring and we're training and people are getting the connections, or they're starting to get the connections that they need, we don't necessarily have the career path for them. We don't necessarily have a way for them to stay in play. If I have folks rotate in and they're together for 4 months or 6 months, and I'm learning that domain, if I'm then rotating out or I'm reassigned somewhere else, how do I carry that continuity forward? And Don, I'd be interested to hear if there's been anything that you've been able to do from your side of the house, but also Ian and Don.
So just quickly, teams learn together, right? And teams perform together. So it is incredibly important as we build teams that we pay attention to their longevity, right? And their ability to stick together. And as we bring in and out new team members, we have to do that with an eye toward sort of kind of using those team members as a nugget of truth that we can transplant into another team to kind of grow a new team. Those patterns exist. I would not tell you we figured this out. The Marine Corps currently has two Marines, 0673 prototype MOS for application developers. Both of those individuals are working with me down here at NIWC Atlantic in Charleston. And we're trying to figure this out real time right now. How do you build a career field, right? The Army's trying to figure this out right now, right? The Air Force has gone a long way, toward attacking the same problem. And I'd love to hear other solutions. And in fact, next month, I'm slated to go down to Texas and talk to both the Army and the Air Force about their approaches in this field, because it is kind of the current action.
Yeah, we've got to solve it to get to those long-lived teams.
I was just going to jump in and just from the product side of the house, if you will, because my job is to help all you be successful. I think it comes down to three things. It's people, process, and product. And as you're looking to move forward in this, wherever you are in that journey, whether you're just beginning or intermediate users, product is important. It absolutely is, but you have to realize it's people and process. So it's a cultural change. You're going to be bringing people in, and DevOps or DevSecOps only works when all the stakeholders and all the constituents are working together, and they should all be able to see what's going on. They should all have input to what's going on. The security people should be able to review security scans as early as possible to make sure of our risk profile. And then it's the process. Are we going to deal with interns as developers? Are we going to, where are we going to get staff? Just as you're talking about. So how do I measure my productivity? Because every project will fail if you can't prove value and success, right? So are you going to be able to measure your success and be able to show that, look, we're answering the war fighters' needs because we've developed this mobile app in a week rather than 2 months or whatever the application is or whatever the solution is. But success has to be demonstrated as well.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, a good developer is 10 times better than a bad developer, right? There's some metrics out there around that. Larry, I'd love to get you involved with this discussion.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that everybody has stated out here, that people, the training, it is so important, especially when I look at our brownfield applications, right? Sometimes it's a challenge just to get that program to understand an automated build, because they've done it the way that they've done it for so long. So we take that small step of, okay, let's teach you an automated build because you don't have one. And I agree, let's keep the tools out of it. Let's just teach them the principle of ways to automate their process so that they can fit into the DevSecOps world and be aligned with that. And again, it isn't we aren't targeting tool A or tool B. They should be interchangeable as long as they're in that mindset of we're going to automate and get human factors out of it so that we can have a repeatable process and delivering something to the customer within a quick time frame. And I do agree, pulling everything to the left. I think security, we stated that let's get securities on eyes on those scans as soon as possible. They shouldn't wait till the end. So we are taking that mindset, and for the most part, it's working great, but we do run into some instances where people have issues with it. Not only the programs, but even some of the organizations like our security team, and trying to see where they fit into that process and how earlier in some of our automated testing folks, they look at how are we going to shift that to the left when they have been so accustomed over the years of being to the right. And it's like, no, we're going to shift you in here. And that process is still ongoing for us, but we're making progress in that fight and moving everybody, the mindset, the training, the technology, and everything with that. And we made good with all the polls. I do believe that they were right on line with where I see BES is going with their DevSecOps and Agile and everything else in that regards.
Great. And Ian, you want to add anything? I didn't get you a chance yet.
Yes, there's a lot, but one of the big things, I think there was even a question about it, where's that kind of starting place? And for us, it's really sit down with with your teams, those who are actually going to be in the environment using your services, and really ask them, not just the, their product owners or their stakeholders, but the developers themselves of, what are the pain points that you are facing in development, or what are the headaches that you face? Instead of taking the approach of, okay, let's go through the entire DevSecOps process. And, if you start stressing that their build is taking 10 minutes and you can take 2 minutes off of that, is that really a win? Is that, the measurement that you want to come out and say we won? But, when the headache may be for the developers of, at the end of the day, we push out our code and then security gets mad at us and we have to rework everything. So really, getting in there with the teams and just, discussing what are those pain points, and then, going after those big wins, getting them to say, hey, let's bring the security left. Let's give you that insight of what security is going to look at the end of the day. That's what this is really about. When we talk shift left, it's not, let's just shift everything left at once. Let's get those big wins. Let's find out what those pain points are. So, as we start to implement this, we get those big hurdles out of the way. We get those big success stories where we have those teams coming out saying, yes, this is something that everybody should be doing. And that's where you need to start. It's not looking at, okay, let's find the best technology and the most expensive technology. Let's take a look at, the everyday user and what gives them the headaches, and let's fix those.
Great. Good point. I know one thing, a note to self, I'm going to put together a place on our website where we can kind of share these playbooks from you guys. A lot of the civilian agencies might not have seen them, but, I have always, when we've done this in the past, the civilian agencies may have something you don't know too. I think it'd be best for us all to compare, take, I'll take this, and this from these different ones and implement it. Great stuff. I don't know what happened to the time. It's an hour and a half already and we're almost done. So just real quick, where do we see your organizations by the end of next year? We're talking the future of DoD DevSecOps. Where do you, so we'll give everybody about, 35, 40 seconds, something like that. We'll start off with you, Duan.
One of the things that we're working on, and you'll see kind of things evolve with Platform One, is we are continuing to strengthen our platform so that people can trust it. And so that goes back to the security practices that we've had. We're going to continue improving that. We're going to be as transparent as possible to our stakeholders, our customers, our government organizations that depend on it. And we're going to build upon that. So that's the whole shifting security to the left, and that's the transparency. The other thing that you'll start seeing, I think, over time is, just to add to some of the discussions earlier, is, when we talk about shifting left and the mindset, it's about also working with your program managers, your acquisition program managers, working with your PEOs, working with your senior leaders, that they are actually driven by a budget and a budget cycle. And as much as we like to talk about technology, it's really the money that matters. And we have to, and so I'm looking at this as we have to actually empathize and, almost like develop a persona, not just for individual end users, but the program officers themselves. Where are they at on their life cycle? Where are they at in the fiscal year? What are the budget pressures that they have upon them? And especially because there's this time value component to the money that they have to spend. And so how do you take advantage of that time component of money to use that and build out an agile plan where you're actually achieving MVPs throughout over time? So those are some of the things that I actually want to drive Platform One to start advising on those things more than just the technology piece. So that's a kind of a new thing there. And then also, again, expanding on the commercialization. This is a pilot. We just kicked it off. Hopefully, we'll be on a second 6-month leg on that pilot. We'll expand to more resellers. So we're going to bring in more companies to come in, provide that services offering for everyone. And so that hopefully we should expand that out to anyone, including federal agencies and so forth. So just kind of give you that where we're going to go. Over.
Fantastic. We'll have to have you back in the interim, especially when we get back to in person. Don?
Yeah, briefly for the sake of time, that's awesome, and I love hearing it. Where the Don is, the Department of the Navy is going to kind of drive 3 big stakes into the ground over the next year. First, in terms of why we did that big survey of DevSecOps platform service providers and different DevSecOps activities across the Don, was to drive us to enterprise services, right? So I think what you're going to see is we're going to standardize some of our approaches across the Don as an enterprise. And where we consume other people's approaches, we're going to do that with malice aforethought, right? Thing two, the Don CIO is taking over a role as a resource sponsor for colorless appropriation for software. The largest one in the DoD is actually in the Don, and that is the what used to be called NGen, right? That's still that program line's name. So you're going to see us try to take advantage of that to move much faster when we're not constrained by, procurement versus R&D versus O&M, right? And then the third thing where you're going to see us drive a big stake in the ground is our people approach. So we're going to work with the other services, the other service providers here, and expand on some of the pilots we're already doing to try and figure out how to maliciously make sailors and Marines and civilians who are experts and can get around all of this, right? In terms of how they're actually moving out. So those are the three big stakes we're going to drive into the ground of the Department of the Navy. Over.
Great, thank you. Next, Tracy.
So let me make sure I'm not on mute. Did I mute myself? Okay. So there are four things that I really see the focus on from an FFRDC or a MITRE perspective coming up over the next year. The first one is really that focus on the value stream. We've talked about this. DevSecOps is part of a bigger value stream. So enabling that flow, understanding how value gets delivered from ideation out to the warfighter, whether it is using traditional value stream mapping or using newer rapid value stream mapping efforts. The second is continuous training. And providing that transparency that's necessary. Now, this training is persona-based. Dong mentioned that a little bit ago. Getting to the personas is a really important part of this. We understand persona-based design about the end user application, but there are personas in the mix. We have to understand a day in the life of a developer, of a quality person. We have to understand those pieces and parts in order to better implement the training. The third part is the continuous integration of information. We've got information chaos right now. If a developer goes out and goes looking for information, they're overwhelmed. Even the number of opportunities for us to have conversations like this can be overwhelming. So getting that necked down so that people can consume the information that they need, but that they have availability of that information. They can see the new types of assets that are available to them. They can look in Iron Bank. They can look in as Black Pearl is kicking off. And the final thing is getting back to that architecture as the enabler. We've got to continue to focus on the architecture. I can't simply say I'm going to do DevOps. I've got to understand the architecture. Doesn't mean it's big up front. It doesn't mean that it's a stopper, but it does mean that we have to be intentional about it, because Linda Northrop would tell you, she's from the SEI. She said about 2015, she said the worst thing that ever happened to software was Agile, because we started to think to ourselves, it's emerging architecture. Architecture doesn't emerge. The way that developers can implement it may emerge, but the architecture has to be intentional. So continuous integration of information, value streaming, trusting our people and getting them the type of just-in-time training that they need, and architecture. Those are those four big focuses. Over.
Great point, Tracy. Thank you. Next, Larry.
Yeah, so I think this upcoming year, we're going to be more focused on working with a partnership with Bespin and combining some of the efforts that we kind of utilize now. Right now, we're two separate, but we have already started working on shared components and shared services that we can utilize across the two DSO pipelines. And another focus is, and I think we've heard this over the past few speakers here, is training. We're going to focus more on training and people in terms of not only the people that we support or the programs that we support, but also our DevSecOps team here, and try to get them better training and more in line with what we see how we're going to grow, and our partnership with Bespin, how we can come together and offer across the two pipelines, both the greenfield and the brownfield, some of the shared services along there. I think that's where our focus is going to be, and trying to get that training and the some of the things that we see, what the pipeline offers, into the mindset of what the program sees, so that we share a common vision out.
Great. That sounds like a great idea to harmonize what you're doing. Ian?
Yeah, so everything that Don said, absolutely amazing, and I love that's where the Navy's going to go from the perspective of someone kind of within one of the DevSecOps platforms that we're offering out. Where I see that things are going to go is there isn't a one size that's going to fit all. We're going to have multiple software factories or platforms out there, and I think it's going to kind of converge into what are they best for. And I believe we're going to have multiple ones that will be good for combat systems, ones that will be good for battle management systems, and one that's good for O&R and smaller projects. So positioning ourselves into where we see that we best fit. Which right now, Dahlgren's going to try to position itself as that launch pad that, come to us, let us teach you these, like Tracy said, leading practices. Let us help you get your project off the ground if you need that. And then, keep that parity with all of our software factories, not just the Navy, but DoD as well with Platform One. How can we collaborate? How can we make sure that if a team moves from one to another, that they're able to do that lift and shift very easily? So that's kind of where I see, from the on the ground perspective, where things are going to converge to in the next few years.
Great. Thanks for that, Ian. And Joe, I'm going to give you the last word, partner.
Thanks,
No pressure.
Tom. No, right. Hey, first, I want to thank all my colleagues here because, doesn't matter what software I deliver or sell, if it's not usable by you folks and helping you accomplish your mission, it's no good. So I appreciate your input. GitLab will continue to do what we're doing, in that we will continue to expand the functionality and breadth of our product. You can look for AI and ML to be incorporated into the product within the development cycles, as well as supporting the development of AI and ML. I think that's going to be key in the upcoming years. And then model-based engineering, just overall these emerging technologies or processes that look like they're going to be promising to help the effort with the warfighter. So that's where we'll be, and we'll continue to listen to our customers and grow the product out as you need it.
Great. Thank you, Joe. And that concludes our program, except for one thing. I forgot it. Almost messed me up. We need to show what we're doing. Our next, we have a panel for data readiness on October 28th. We look forward to people going there. Now, the CPE credits, that's the new thing. Please answer, and we will get you your certificate. We've learned a lot today about training and learning, and this is a small piece of your total training portfolio. So we definitely want to give the folks credit that need it. So thank you very much. And thank you, Ian, Duong, Don, Larry, Tracy, who had to leave, and Joe. This has been a great talk. I've really enjoyed it. We're going to get you all back. And sorry, we kind of ran out of time. We could have done this for another hour, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye now.
Thank you.